Hello and welcome everybody to Divine and Dirty. This is your host, Mr. 6'7", and joining me tonight and every night is my super dope co-host, Miss Sherry Estevez. How you doing, Sherry?
I'm good, guys. Everybody out there, and as you know, I represent the divine side of the Divine and Dirty duo, and I'd like to thank you guys for all logging in with us and signing in and calling in tonight and joining us here at the Divine and Dirty Talk Show, where we'd love to discuss the open topics that the taboo topics that no one else wants to discuss that are traditionally just swept underneath the rug. We'd like to talk about it and give you the lowdown dirty, and also give our listeners and our callers a chance to express themselves as well. And because we know that the only way to truly heal is to reveal.
Yeah, well said, well said. And tonight is not going to be any exception to the rule. If you're not tuning in, you may want to call somebody, text somebody, and tell them to tune in tonight's show. And I'm going to do something out of order tonight. I'm going to go ahead and give the call-in number ahead of time. The call-in number is 646-478-3474. And I want you to press 1 if you have a question or comment. The reason why I'm doing that is that tonight's topic is one that, unless you live up under a rock, you haven't heard anything about it. It's getting a lot of media attention and necessary media attention. Tonight we're talking about the Trayvon Martin versus Zimmerman verdict. We want to know, listeners, how do you feel about the Trayvon Martin trial? And we want to talk about the real issues at hand. What positive actions can we take to affect the change, a positive change? It's time to put up or shut up, all right?
That's right.
That's it. In addition, tonight we have a very special guest who will be joining us later in the show, and Sherry will introduce him. His attorney, Fred Jones, who is no stranger to the law and the rights of others. And you'll hear more about that in a little bit from Sherry, who, like I said, who will introduce him a little later. Sherry, I got to ask you, obviously, the question is, what was your first thought when you heard the verdict?
I was just really shocked. I actually did not expect that. I really expected a manslaughter verdict. I did not expect a not guilty verdict. I was floored. I was absolutely floored.
Right. And I think it's safe to say you were not alone. I got to tell you, as a man, I went through several emotions. First, obviously, I was angered because I couldn't believe they found this guy innocent. Then it went from anger to sadness because, I can't believe this is a 17-year-old black man that's basically been gunned down and no justice. And then I went to a feeling of inadequacy, where I felt inadequate because I had to question myself. Because if I'm going to question other people, I got to question myself first. I got to check myself first. And, I had to pose the question to myself, as I hope many of you will do tonight. You got to ask yourself, okay, what have you done in the community to affect change? Now, I'm not saying that by the work that you've done in the community would have stopped this situation from happening, but at the end of the day, we all have to join together. We all have to make a difference. Because if we're not making a difference, how is it within our right to complain? So, it's kind of like check yourself. In the words I used to, check yourself before you wreck yourself. And I got one more quote, like Michael Jackson used to say, Sherry, hey, I'm looking at the man in the mirror. So I went through a series of emotions, and I wonder how many people, I would love to hear from our listeners tonight as far as like their thoughts and their feelings when they first heard the verdict.
Right. So originally we had the original topic of tonight's show was going to be about open marriages. But like I said, I was so shocked, and I believe everyone was so shocked and appalled about the verdict in this case, that we decided that it was going to be a worthy topic to discuss, and we wanted to we thought that we wanted to change the topic because we know that this verdict would severely impact our community as well as our country in a very significant way. So we wanted to open up the forum tonight. We have one guest that, as we said, attorney Fred Jones. He's kindly offered his services, and he'll be on the line to discuss, to answer any questions that we have about that might pertain to the law or to the criminal justice system. And then also tonight he'll be helping us wrap up the show. But as I said, we wanted to open the forum again and just because there's nowhere you can go where you can actually, when the trial was actually in session, where there wasn't somebody discussing this passionately. I mean, you could go to the grocery store, to the cleaners, anywhere you went, there was somebody discussing this case, and in many cases they were debating and actually arguing the issue. So as Mr. 67 said, what we want to do is we want to allow everyone to discuss, to call in, give us your comments, and give us some feedback. But we're not looking for just the opportunity to vent. We're looking for some positive action to be attached to those opinions. So we want to go ahead and get started with our show tonight, guys.
Right. And before we go any further, I told you we already got callers calling in. Just keep in mind, y'all, when you dial the number, press 1 if you have a question or comment. We're going to take a quick call real quick. Caller, are you on the line with us?
Yes. Hello, everybody.
Hello, caller. Thank you for calling Divine and Dirty. This is Mr. 67. State your name, your comment, or question.
Hi, my name is Melanie, and I'm from Atlanta. And I just wanted to say I was really shocked when I heard the verdict at first because I did not understand what he was on trial for. But when I sat back and thought about it, he wasn't on trial for if he killed Trayvon because we all knew he did and he wasn't denying that he did. It was more about the self-defense. And at first I was really angry about the justice system and all of that kind of stuff, but then I had to look at legal and logic is not the same. I couldn't be mad at a justice system when 6 people that sat in the box made the decision, not our country. We didn't get to vote on it. And so I had to really grab my emotion back and not make it such a negative, not that it was positive, against our country, so to speak. And it was more of the loopholes in our system. And like anything, it's just like credit. If you don't know the rules, sometimes you don't, or if you don't know the loopholes, it seems like other cultures win, but it's because sometimes they look more into information or they play the rules the right way to win the game. And I just think we need to learn how to do the same thing.
Right. And, Carla, I want to thank you for calling in because one thing that you said, as I mentioned, at the beginning of the show, I like the fact that you had to grab hold of yourself. You had to check yourself first. And I think this situation, of all situations, not saying there haven't been situations before, but this is obviously, as we always say, this is a serious wake-up call, not only for us to go out into the communities and do things to try to cultivate a positive change, but also to educate ourselves on the judicial system and how it works so that we know our rights. And so when situations like this arise, heaven forbid that something like this happen again, but we are prepared to understand the situation. Because I ran into a lot of people, Melanie, who did not quite understand the 6 and 12 jury selection. So, that was interesting to me. And there was a lot of people who were just not educated about the judicial system. But, I think this will be a wake-up call for everybody.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for bringing this topic and letting people heal. I think it's really appreciated.
Right. Thank you for calling in, caller. Before we go to commercial break real quick, I want to throw out some facts to the listeners real quick that I found pretty interesting. According to TampaBay.com, it's been 7 years since Florida introduced this law, the Stand Your Ground law. And since that time, there's been over 200 Stand Your Ground cases, which is pretty interesting. Now, get this. Those who invoke the Stand Your Ground rule to avoid persecution are extremely successful. 70% now, 70% have gone free. Another interesting fact is that the Stand Your Ground rule is more likely to prevail from someone who has killed a black person. 70% of the people who killed a black person face no penalty, compared to 59% of those who killed a white person face penalties. Pretty interesting. And I'm going to take one more caller real quick. Caller, are you on the line with us? Hello, caller? All right. I may have lost a caller.
I'm on.
Hello, caller. This is Mr. 67 with Divine and Dirty. I'm with my co-host, Miss Sherry Estevez. Where are you calling? State your name and where you're calling from. What's your question or comment?
My name is Nicole, and I'm calling from Decatur.
Hey, Nicole. Thank you for calling in. What's your question or comment?
I had a question for you guys. Do you think that the witnesses on the stand hurt the case on Trayvon's side?
I honestly don't. I honestly think the witnesses overall were just they were just conflicting one another. I don't know that the witnesses so much hurt him as that the witnesses altogether. I think that the jury had to use the facts that they had, and because the witnesses were all conflicting each other, and I think that no one agreed, and the witnesses just weren't credible because of that.
Mhm.
I want to. Is that all you had, Colin?
Yeah, I was wondering your take on the witnesses that were for Trayvon's side.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that question. We really appreciate that. Right now, what we're going to do is we're going to take a short break because it's time to pay the bill.
Are you tired of your body sitting at work while your mind is on vacation? Well, let Roberts Travel Services take your body where your mind wants to go. From Tahiti for a romantic getaway to Vegas for a girls' getaway, Roberts Travel Services will take great care of you. Visit them at robertstourismservices.com or give them a call at 404-939-6638. That's 404-939-6638. And if you would like to help people see the world, make money while they do it, and receive travel perks as a travel agent, give Ms. Roberts a call at 404-939-6638. Roberts Travel Services. Let them help you see the world.
Hey ladies, tune in to Sister with eHarmony, the diva, and her co-host as they bring you guests and topics that will encourage and empower you, dealing with issues women face on a daily basis and the solutions that will free us. Tune in every Monday, 6 p.m. at WXRPradio.com or call in at 347-324-3102. As always, don't forget to live and love responsibly. Sister to Sister on WXRP Radio, the station that listens.
Welcome back to Divine and Dirty. If you're just joining us tonight, we're talking about the Trayvon Martin versus Zimmerman verdict. How you feel about the Trayvon Martin trial? What are the real issues at hand? And what positive actions we can take to affect a positive change? It's time to put up a shut up. So if you're just joining us or you're still trying to get the information right, keep in mind the call-in number is 646-478-3474. And always remember to press 1 if you have a question or comment. Sherry.
Hey, guys, I want to discuss Mr. 6'7". He raised the point and he started speaking about the stand your ground law. Now, I don't know about the rest of you, but when this trial began, I really, I had no idea what the stand your ground law was. And so as I watched the trial unfold, I really decided I was going to do some research on what this is. And just in case you were like me, and you were, and I can say I was pretty ignorant to the law. I'm not an attorney, and that's not, what I do for a living. So I did a little bit of research. So I want to share with you what I found. So the stand your ground law is a type of self-defense law that gives individuals the right to use reasonable force to defend themselves without any requirement to evade or retreat from a dangerous situation. A person is justified in using deadly force. So, and I was like, wow, that's really, that's pretty extreme. So I did a little more research, and I wanted to figure out where this came from. And what I found is that this law was a bill put together by the National Rifle Association. So after I did that research, I realized, hey, this was all about making some money. This was all about being able to for people to have reasons, have just cause to buy more guns and arm themselves, and that's how I felt about it anyway. I mean, why in the heck would the National Rifle Association put this bill together? But I also went a little bit deeper, and I wanted to know, man, if this is what's happening in Florida, could this possibly happen in Georgia? So I wanted to find out how many states have actually enacted this particular law. And I went, after researching just for a few minutes, I found that 16 states. And those states are Alabama, Arizona, Florida, Georgia. So if you're in Georgia, I'm in the state of Georgia. And I was a little bit frightened by that. Georgia, Indiana, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, Montana, Nevada, New Hampshire, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Texas, and Utah. And then when I looked at that, I realized those are all red states. Those are all red states. Those are all Republican states. That's, not coincidental, and it wasn't shocking to me to find that out at all. But anyway, callers, I wanted to educate you on that because I think it's very important to understand that, if you're in one of those states, unless your work on the side of advocacy to change these laws, your child, my child, anyone we know, any one of our loved ones could be in the exact same position that Trayvon Martin was in. Fred, are you there? Fred Jones, our guest?
Yes, I'm here.
I'll go ahead and briefly introduce you because I know that you're no stranger to working on the side of advocacy, and I know that you are not only just an attorney, you're a professor, and you're also an associate pastor. You're also the founder of the Advocates of Christ Law Group, and I know that one of the missions that you're dedicated to is practicing the principles of raising up future leaders. So I wanted to actually speak with you and ask you if you, at this time, if you want to invoke any of your opinions or add anything to what we've said so far.
Well, my first thought would be to just basically comment on the case in general. The verdict in this case is one that shocked, stunned a lot of us, many of us. But in retrospect, and after having examined the case through the legal lenses, through the spiritual lenses, through every lens that I have, I want to say this. The verdict in this case has been one of the biggest blessings to America in the last 25 years, with all due respect to the loss of Mr. Trayvon Martin. What this case has done is exposed and brought out to light something that goes on every day across this country in courtrooms of America that never catches the eye of the media. So my reaction might be a little different than everyone else's. I see this as a great blessing, and the mere fact that we're having this conversation concerning the reasonableness of our young boys being able to walk down the street with a hoodie on their head and not be suspected as a criminal. The verdict in this case says that if we see someone dressed as Trayvon was dressed, then they are, quote, unquote, up to something. And it has basically given a nod to security officers or law enforcement to go and pursue this person, provoke a fight, and kill them if the pursuer is armed. So I'm real concerned and glad we're having this conversation.
Great. I know that some people might think that, may find that to be a strange thing to say, but I actually agree with you. I definitely agree with you. Like I said in the beginning of our show, one of the reasons why we like to discuss the sort of taboo topics and controversial topics is because if we don't reveal the topics, we can't work towards a positive solution and healing them. And, we have to bring these things to light. And this case did exactly that. It shed light on a lot of the issues that we otherwise from the public like myself, I would have never known what the stand your ground law was. I would have known none of those things, none of the things that were shed light upon in this particular trial. So I definitely agree with you there.
Right.
Yeah. Yes, it's time for action, and the action that we have to take is what caller number one said, is information. She said we need to know the rules. We've got to know the rules in order to be successful in the game, and life is a game to a large extent.
Yes, and Fred Jones, this is Mr. 67. I'm interested in your take on this, okay? What I found from TampaBay.com is that 70%, as I mentioned earlier in the show, 70% of those people who killed a black person under this law did not face a penalty. So my question, how, up until this case, how has it managed to stay under the radar up until this case? And so many African Americans are being killed under this law.
We've become numbed. We've been anesthetized. We've been put to sleep at the value of life in our community. When you devalue life and disrespect life yourselves, then when something negative happens to someone that looks like ourselves, then it kind of goes under the radar. No one discusses. It's just another one gone.
Wow. And so, if I hear you correctly, Attorney Jones, is that, we, like you said, we become numb to other black people being killed until, like, this high-profile case will involve somebody of another race. Well, it seems like as long as it's black on black, we have become comfortable and numb with it and saying that's okay.
Right. A couple of things, Mr. 6-7, a couple of things going on here. Now, watch this. In a criminal case, the burden that has to be carried by the prosecution, and the prosecution is the state. The prosecution is you and I, because we pay taxes. We put money into the system. Therefore, we are the state in any state. Is the prosecution has to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. Beyond a reasonable doubt, okay? All the defense has to do is create a reasonable doubt. My question to you and the audience today, can a dead person create a reasonable doubt?
Ooh.
No.
That is a question.
So if there's only two people there and you stand your ground and you kill the other person, if there's only two, there's no witness to that act. I won't even say it's a crime. There's no witness to what happened if only two people at the scene of an incident and one is dead and the other one is alive, and the person who's alive had a weapon and said, I stood my ground and I killed him because he attacked me, or he shows some sign of having been attacked, then there's no witnesses. Can you prove a case with no witness? No.
That's a very valid point, Mr. Jones. Hey, we have a caller. Caller, go ahead and press 1 and go ahead and state your comment or question.
Hi, this is Yvette, and I have a question for the guest, Fred. As an advocate for young teens, what can we do as a community, as parents, to help protect our young folks, from this kind of thing happening?
Educate, educate, educate. Empower, empower, empower. When I say empower, relationships. Okay, let me put it like this. I heard someone say this. I'm not saying this, okay? I heard someone say this. Good lawyers know the law. Great lawyers know the judge. We've got to build relationships. We got to build relationships with the system. Instead of talking about it's us and them, it's got to be us, the United States. This is a new day for us, okay? This is our country. This is our state. This is our community. And we've got to get in and put our hands to the plow and bring our children to the courthouse, take our children down to the state capitol, take them to an election party or whatever. And we got to educate, we got to empower, we got to get engage ourselves in the community and begin to mainstream. As long as the media, and with all due respect to the media, because what we're doing here is media to a large extent. With all respect, many times we allow ourselves to become divided, black against white, us against them. Boom, we've already lost. So we got to keep the issue, the main issue. In this case that just took place, this was not a race. I told my class, when this case came down, I said we do not need to make this case about race. This case needs to be about a constitution and the right of someone who has not committed a crime to walk down the streets. We should have made this a constitutional issue. Then white people would have been comfortable to support black people in support of the Martin family. But no, we made it a black and white thing, and you make it a black and white thing, we lose. Because then the white people begin to send all the money through the NRA, as you just said, through the NRA, the Second Amendment Foundation, and all the other gun rights advocates. They begin to feed the money into the system, and then, boom, if the defense got all the money, then the defense can buy a reasonable doubt. And when I say buy it, they can create it through real creative evidence. Okay?
You know what, Fred, I definitely have to agree with you there. We do. I think that as a community on whole, we have developed, and I don't think it was just by happenstance, I think we have been fed a very small mindset, meaning us against them, and that we are the ants and they are the giants in the land.
Yep.
And I think that we have also become apathetic, and I think that we are raising an apathetic generation that sits around watching, posting on Instagram, Facebook, and watching reality TV, and nothing affects them until it affects them. You see what I'm saying? And I do think that we are, as a whole, in the black community, we definitely see it as us and them, and I think that we already feel defeated, and therefore we don't become educated, and we don't act on the circumstances, and we don't get involved in changing laws and changing the way things are, because we just feel like it's just the way things are.
And you're correct. And on that note, Sherry, on that note, we talk about should we change the law? I would say, we want to think that one through real good, because what are we going to change? The standard for the burden of proof? The cornerstone, the cornerstone of American jurisprudence or American law is we would rather see 1,000 guilty people go free than to convict one innocent person. That is the cornerstone of our law.
Yes. We have a caller. Caller, go ahead and press 1 if you want to go ahead and state your comment or ask a question to just Mr. Attorney Fred Jones, or just in general.
Hello, caller. We missed hello, caller.
Yes.
Yes, caller. Yes, caller. Thank you for calling 930.
Hi. Yes,
Hello.
This is Melanie again. I just had to say, one other thing. I found a lot of people posting on Facebook about the case, and some people responding very frustrated that marching is not going to do anything, protesting is not going to do anything, and all of this other stuff. And it kind of made me upset because that same person was doing nothing. And I think sometimes we get divided amongst ourselves. Sometimes God calls us to do different things. It doesn't have to be what you've been called to do. If he told me to put together a march, and most people haven't been to one, but one thing about when people get unified and march and their energy is charged and God is in the midst, things come out of that people then TV doesn't show. So for those people who think that it doesn't matter, every little thing does count, and we need to stop criticizing each other for what we have been called to do, as our part, and not, seemingly irrelevant, so to speak.
Right. And thank you for that comment, Melanie. And I want to, if I could, add on to that. I think just as Fred Jones has said, this is a wake-up call for us as well, and as I mentioned as well. But I think a lot of people have forgotten how we got here. If you think back in history, we got here. It started with marches. It started with standing outside the store who would not serve a black person, or the restaurant. So that's where it started. I think people have forgotten how we got here. But it's mighty funny to me that people are okay with a group of people spending $140 for some Jordans and standing out in the cold and the rain, but when you're standing for something right, you get criticized. The irony there.
You raise an excellent point. We all have different techniques, different means, different ways of making our voices heard, and everybody need to use whatever strategy that they feel personally convicted to put forth to make the issue known. I totally agree with you.
I also want to bring up an issue that I received after the verdict. I had so many texts, I had emails, I had texts. I was inundated with passionate comments and responses. And then one thing I received that sort of disturbed me when I initially received it, it was an email that had some information that there was a paper goods company that was sponsoring George Zimmerman and paying for his legal fees. And so that really disturbed me, and I'm not quite sure why it disturbed me as much as some of the other actual issues and details of the case didn't. But it disturbed me, I think, mostly because I was like, why? Why would they want to attach themselves to this man? And so I, again, did a little bit of research on that, and I found that the name of this company was Koch Industries. And when I dug into just a little bit further, it said that Koch Industries, that rumor was actually false. And I was amazed that so many people sent me texts saying, let's boycott Koch Industries because, they sell all these they sell Mardi Gras paper towels and Angel Soft bath tissues, all these things that we use in our homes. Let's go ahead and boycott. And I thought, wow, that's great. Everybody wants to make a stand and stand up and, and do something and pull together and that fizzled very, very quickly. And then also the other topic I wanted to address is that when I did just a tiny bit of research, I discovered that was actually false. There was Koch Industries wasn't actually paying his legal fees. They were sponsoring him, linking him, allowing him basically to use the website for him to raise money for his trial. But I think that the initiative and the initial passion was there, and it fizzled. Why is that? Why is that we always jump on the bandwagon for 5 minutes, and then the passion fizzles? Is it that we don't have something strong enough that will keep our interest, to keep us passionate about, and to help us engage and move forward and to execute a strategy for some real change in our community?
I think the issue here is real clear. Too long have too many of us been driven by our emotions. Emotions come and go. Emotions are high and low. But when you are moved by enlightenment and education, and when you've gotten your facts together, then the longevity of your position will prevail. Now, if we can stir anger and fear and hatred, those things get people all riled up and cause them to go out and say ridiculous things and do ridiculous stuff at times. But when we step back, as your first caller said, when she pulled back and thought about it and processed it, then was she able to think more logically and more reasonably and clearer. And when we take our positions in that way, then we will see real change, real support in our communities. And unfortunately, we see too much of this also in our churches, where people want to feel something. They want to get excited about something. Well, life is more than just feeling. We got to deal with the facts. And the facts is, if you get into the legal system and you're accused of being you're a defendant, that case must be proved beyond a reasonable doubt. And if you can create a reasonable doubt, the defendant will get out. But if the defendant cannot create a reasonable doubt, they're going to jail.
Mm-hmm. And Fred, you mentioned, I guess, when Shay was saying that the law needs to be changed, you mentioned something about it, that we really need to think about that, right? Do you think that? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Finish your question.
No. I was just going to ask you, what do you think? What kind of action should take place, if any, as a result of this?
Oh, I definitely think action should be taken. Definitely. I think laws should be reviewed. Definitely. Okay? But what I think, Mr. 67 and Sherry, is this. Our people have got to get an understanding of how the law works. People with resources are more likely to have a better defense. As a result, they're probably going to get acquitted. And we got to so what should be done? Let me answer that question real clear. More education, read to our children, and explain to them how to talk to the police. There's a video out there that I would encourage both of you and your whole audience to see. I posted it on my Facebook page. Title of it, Don't Talk to the Police. And it has about 2 million hits on it, okay? It's a powerful video. But educate, we must empower ourselves through quality relationships. We must engage, get involved in the community, get involved in the political process, understand lawmaking, take ownership of your community, get involved. Then the next thing, we've got to employ an updated strategy. I'm going to say that one real careful. Employ an updated strategy. Do you know that police officers are now policing neighborhoods based on zip codes? Certain zip codes, they know that there's drama over there, so every time an officer goes over there, they know someone's going to jail, or they know someone's getting killed over there in that different neighborhoods. And guess what? The emergency response time in certain neighborhoods is different than in other neighborhoods because they know who lives over there. Okay?
Right.
And then I'm gonna give you my kicker. Here's the kicker. We've got to escape crime. Okay? Now that sounds kind of harsh. Don't do crime, but listen to this. Don't sing songs which has criminal lyrics. That's something we need to think about. Don't get that in your head to hate the cops and shoot the cops and talk about somebody's mama. You're gonna eventually do it if you get it in your head. And the next thing, don't dance to criminal lyrics.
Hey, Fred, you are making some powerful points, and what I want to do, because we got a caller that's been patiently waiting, I want to take the call, then we're going to go to a commercial break after the caller, and then I want to go back to what you just said, okay?
I'll be right here.
Hello, caller? Hello, caller? Caller, press 1 for a question or comment. Hello, caller?
Hello?
Yes, caller. Thank you for calling Divine Endurance.
I had a question for the attorney. Why is it that this was a 6-person instead of a 12-person jury? I never got clarification on that. And another thing you mentioned was Trayvon, he wasn't represented there. And it looks like he wasn't even really represented on the jury either. So I think that was another reason why people got up in arms about this. Is that they don't feel like he's been represented, So what's your take on that?
Well, the number of jurors, that is set by the state there, and be it 6 or 9, or it could have been a judge trial. So we ruled out the judge trial because they knew it was highly political, so you put a jury there, and that'll keep the heat off of the judge. Remember, most state judges are elected, okay? So the defense and the prosecution discussed that process, and the Constitution provided for the 6 jurors, okay? And so that's what you got. When we choose jurors, we got a process called voir dire. Voir dire, Latin word, which basically means how we choose our jurors. And the prosecution and the defense, they began their case based on that jury selection, okay? So I think what we have seen here that everybody is concerned about was the quality, a lack of passion. It appeared to be a lack of passion on the part of the prosecution, okay? And whoever has the most passion and the most persistence and the most drive, that has a way of coming through in the way you present your case. Obviously, it appeared that the prosecution or the state of Florida did not prepare their witnesses very well. I'll ask you to look at something. Did you all notice, did everyone notice how well-dressed and what the presence of George Zimmerman in that courtroom? He had no look on his face. He was well-dressed. He sat up, and he expressed no emotions until after the verdict, okay? He was coached up to do that by the defense team, and that's just the way that system works, okay? And I'm concerned about how it came out, but I must go on record and say this. Legally, the verdict came out right legally, but morally and spiritually, something in me is unsettled that someone can pursue a person, so that a person can be pursued because they appear to be up to something, then a confrontation ensues, and then the person who has a gun shoots the other person. Something about that is just unsettling for me. But legally, I think the case came out right with the way that it was represented and the way it was handled.
All right, caller one, thank you for calling in. What we're going to do, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll come back and we're going to have some more discussion. All right, pay some bills.
WXRP Radio presents I Am an Awesome Woman, the Pen and the Voice. In honor of the Atlanta Black Arts Festival, WXRP Radio is celebrating Women Writers of Atlanta. Join authors Kenny York, Aduke Arimu, Lakia Brandenburg, Benicia Ponder, Dawn Bedingfield, Dorothy Jones, and Charmaine. Also enjoy a musical concert by the one and only international recording artist, Yawandi Austin. This is a free event, Saturday, July 28th, 4 to 8 p.m. at Copper Blue, 117 Martin Luther King Boulevard, Atlanta. This event is being brought to you in part by Dwyer Cultural Center, Salon Envy, Copper Blue, R&R Productions, My Beauty Network, and WXRP Radio.
The therapist, right? Okay, you want to bring us back? We got to get a shit.
Hey, everybody. We want to thank you for being patient and waiting and calling in. We have a caller right now that's been patiently waiting. We want to go ahead and address the caller and ask them to speak their comment or ask a question. Please press 1.
Hello, caller? Yes, caller? All right. Yes, I believe we have on the line with us Ms. Shantae Golson. She's our licensed professional counselor. She's on the line with us. Shantae, are you on the line with us?
Yes, I'm here.
All right. Thank you for joining our show. I got a question for you. We've been talking about the Trayvon Martin versus Zimmerman verdict and, you know, just talking about how we can affect the difference in the community that it's time to put up a setup. Got a question for me. From a psychological perspective, right? What do you think, what impact do you think the verdict has done on the African-American community, has affected on the African-American community?
Well, I believe that this particular verdict has made the African-American community conscious, more intentionally conscious. And what I mean is it is directly in the face of African-Americans. And so they have no other choice but to think about this particular matter. I know that the attorney was speaking on different points that I was also going to highlight, concerning educating ourselves and our children. That is most important. I believe that men as well as women should teach their children how to speak to the police, what to do, how to diffuse themselves in situations. I recently heard a gentleman speak about his method of educating his son as a result of discrimination. He stated, I taught my son how to pull over directly when expected by the police, how to position his hands, what to say, what not to say. And, this particular point is important for the safety of our children. So concerning this, education is very important. Teaching how to survive the discrimination. Resources is very important. And also how to diffuse. We need to step back or away from the situation. I know that this verdict has been very shocking to everyone. Step away, step back. Step away from the emotions. Our emotions are not concrete. Let's look at this. Anger creates a cloud, and it temporarily hinders us from thinking appropriately. Learn our triggering events. Learn what ticks us off, and recognize immediately
so that we can diffuse prior to any actions taking place.
Sante, I want to address something that you said because I think it's a major, major point in this whole trial, and I think this is one of the things you said is why I think that the African-American community is so enraged. You said that it's very important to teach our children and how to address a police officer, how to talk to a police officer, the type of body language that we use. The one thing I want to point out is I definitely think that that's important, but one of the things that enraged everyone, so I believe if I can speak for everyone, I know it enraged me, that George Zimmerman was not a police officer. That was one of the main points. He had no business addressing this kid. There was no reason for him to address him, nor did he have the authority to address Trayvon. So I think that that's one of the main reasons that I think everyone is so enraged. And so I guess I really wanted to address that, but I also wanted to ask Fred a question. Fred, what was the advantage of the stand your ground defense as opposed to just a regular self-defense, I guess, tactic?
Well, self-defense and stand your ground, that pretty much goes hand in hand. And I don't want to speak specifically on the Florida law because I'm not a Florida lawyer, I'm a Louisiana lawyer, but self-defense is somewhat a universal principle. In some states, it used to be if you were attacked, you had to retreat or to try to go for cover. But stand your ground allows you to not be required by the law to retreat. So if you stand your ground and if you feel that your life is in danger, then you have the right to use deadly force against the perpetrator. Now, if you don't feel that your life is in danger, then you are not, the law does not protect you if you use deadly force. But the question becomes, as I said earlier, if the other person is dead, then who's going to make the argument against the perpetrator saying that his or her life was not threatened? You follow me there? So the idea there is, frankly, I want to just probably really stir some stuff up. I think we've been on the wrong side of gun laws. I mean, guns are not evil. They don't kill people. It's people that use them that kill people, okay? But any person wants the right to protect themselves or their home or family or children. And I'm not supporting what happened with Zimmerman. I'm just talking about the right to protect yourself. If somebody's coming at me in my home, well, I'm getting a whole lot of issues out here. We want to talk about him being pursued, okay? I'll back up on some of it.
So I agree with you. I definitely agree with you. Guns don't just jump out of people's closets and drawers and kill people on their own. I am a proponent of guns, and definitely I totally agree with the whole right to defend yourself, to defend your family. So I like guns. Let me just go on record to say that.
That's a bold statement.
And that says a lot coming from Divine. That's some dirty shit he said, but that's from Divine. But and I want to say this as well. As we're talking, we're stressing education. And since this has happened, a lot of people are saying that rather than teach our kids how to education about the law, what they're saying is teach them how to survive. Teaching about shooting guns and how to shoot, just outlandish tactics. So what's your thoughts on that?
I think we're on point. I agree with the counselor who spoke earlier, speaking of the father who taught his son how to speak to the police, where to put your hands, don't jerk or make certain movements. That is very, very important. We cannot overeducate our children on how to survive when it comes to the law. And I often teach my classes and students this. Everybody, every blood-breathing American should have an attorney's cell phone number in their cell phone, okay? So that you can speak to the attorney the moment it happens. And there needs to be an attorney you can call 24/7. Get his or her cell phone. That's going to help our children because most cases are made within the 15 or 20 minutes of the arrest, and the kid's out on the street with the police officer 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and then he or she begins to try to explain themselves. Everything is being recorded. You can't explain it. So our kids need to know this. Don't run. Don't run. Number 2, don't talk to the police. Now, when I say don't talk, I want to qualify that. Give them your license, give them the insurance information, but be very respectful and don't try to explain stuff. And the last, don't disrespect the law. Say officer, sir, officer, yes, officer, yes, ma'am, yes, sir. And if we get those 3 down, don't run, don't talk, and don't disrespect the police, you'll come out all right because police officers will see that that kid or that child is one who's been taught. And if the child would be smart enough to say, I need to speak to my mom or dad or I need to call my attorney, that also sends another signal to the police officer.
And, Fred, if we can we address that real quick? That's very important. I like what you just said as far as, like, everyone should have the name of their attorney's cell phone in their phone for easy contact. Now, address this. Now, does that usually require for you to pay like a retainer in order to have access to your like that, or is that something you just negotiate with your attorney? Can you speak on that real quick?
Build a friendship with the attorney. Find out where the attorneys hang out at. Get to know the attorneys and build a friendship with that person is one thought that I would have. And if you got an attorney who happens to be a teacher, then call the attorney up and say, listen, I need some educational information. There's a big difference between education and legal advice. If you give legal advice, they don't want to pay. You got to pay for that. Education, that's part of your tuition. Okay? And if you got an instructor or a teacher who's been your teacher, let them be your lawyer for life and always call them and friend them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter.
And one other thing I want to go back to is that we're teaching our kids how to address authority, but I think that starts at home. I think that starts with addressing your parents as authority and being respectful to your parents. Of course, I'm always going to reach back and say that comes from a reverence and respect for God and for your parents, teaching you, leading by example. So I definitely think that authority and respect for authority comes from the house, from your home, and then you take that with you to school and to wherever else you may go out into the world. But I also want to, I definitely want to address the fact that, again, Trayvon was not approached by an authority. He probably didn't see this man as a figure of authority. Who was he? He was nobody. I think he was just a regular citizen like himself. So I think that's an issue I think that's being overlooked, is that it's perhaps this fight ensued because Trayvon didn't respect this man as an authority figure over him.
Well, one thing, Sherry, one thing we have to know in all legal cases, we have to get to the issue. And in the case, IRAC a case, issue, rule, application, conclusion, okay? The issue is the main thing. And the issue narrowed down in this case to the confrontation that took place after there was contact. Okay, so he was being followed or pursued and so forth. All of that is true. But it wasn't anything illegal or wrong about that pursuit. A citizen can arrest someone else if they see someone perpetrating a crime. It's called a citizen's arrest. So anybody who's a citizen can arrest someone else if they're bold enough to who's committing a crime if they see it taking place. But the issue that came down to the confrontation, and that's why this case, when you look at the confrontation, it appeared that, there was a fight and that Zimmerman probably got the short end of that fight, and as a result, he pulled his weapon.
All right. Fred, thank you for your question and thank you for being on the show. Before we close out, because we only got about 5 minutes left, what are 2 to 3 action steps that you would give to us and our listeners as steps to take from here?
Again, I would say we've got to escape criminal activity or criminal culture, be it in our songs, our entertainment, or whatever. Let's get away from trouble, distance ourselves, escape that. Employ an updated strategy. Diversify your friendships. Get lawyers and judges on your team. Get involved with the system. And the last point is educate. Let me say this in 20 seconds. Plexico Burr shot himself, and he got jail time. Michael Vick shot dogs, and he got jail time. Marisa Alexander shot in the air, and she got jail time, right? All three of those people got jail time. What is not in dispute is there's not a reasonable doubt that any one of those three people did what they did. As a result, they were convicted. They're not convicted because they were black. They're convicted because there's not a reasonable doubt that they didn't do what they were accused of doing. So we got to be careful about jumping to quick conclusions. Settle down, get the facts, and then respond and keep educating.
Thank you. That was Mr. Attorney Fred Golson. Fred Jones, I apologize. Ms. Golson, you still online with me?
Yes.
I got a question, a real quick question, because we're running out of time here. As far as, like, what advice would you give parents who are talking to their kids about this situation, as far as, like, the best way to handle the situation?
Well, first, address and be transparent to their particular discriminatory events that have happened in their lives. Address, be transparent, or be real, if you want to say it. And then I would say from that particular point, allow their youth to ask any questions that are necessary. And in that, parents still have to be transparent, be real. And from that particular point, I would say get educated together.
Yes. I definitely agree with you on that, Shantae. Thank you so much. Of course, everybody, you know, Shantae is our weekly therapist, and she is definitely a part of the Divine and Dirty team. And if you have any more comments or questions for Shantae, she has a therapeutic center right here in Atlanta on Powers Ferry Road, and you can reach her at 770-212-3578. I want to wrap up and say a couple things. I want to say that one of my favorite quotes is by Edmund Burke, and you'll probably hear me say this often because I really, truly believe this and I live this. The only thing that it takes for evil to flourish is for good men to sit back and do nothing. And one of the reasons we actually changed our topic tonight is because we really want to implore you. We want to ask you. We want to beg you, if necessary, to don't just sit around and talk about these topics. And if you're passionate about them, please take Mr. Jones's advice and implore a strategy and execute and continue to do something about it. Don't just send a text, you know, because you're angry and for 5 minutes and then let it go. We want to implore you to keep moving forward. And hopefully this case has the verdict as well, as this show has lit a fire under you to go out there and be the change that you want to see in the world. That's another one of my favorite quotes. I also want to thank Fred Jones for making himself available for us and for asking questions, and I know that he's definitely shed some light on a lot of the legal questions I had about this case. Again, I want to say that Fred, he actually is the founder of the Advocates of Christ, and they are a group of attorneys in Louisiana and judges that are dedicated to practicing the principles of Jesus Christ, and their mission is to go into the world and make disciples and raise up leaders. So I definitely want to thank Fred for being here. You can also tweet Fred at Fred Jones Speaks. You can reach him directly at 318-617-7190, and you can also go online to Facebook to the Advocates of Christ. And thank you so much, Fred, for being a part of our show tonight. Mr. 6-7.
All right, we're closing out the show, and I just want to thank all of you for tuning in to the show tonight, for Divine and Dirty. Just remember to like us on Facebook. You can also find us on WSRPradio.com, and feel free to leave a comment about the show.
Selling weed and getting money at an early age. That's just one chapter in my life, homie, turn the page. Read vivid descriptions of how we was living. Me and Bo in the kitchen trying to be in a better position. He was cocaine whipping, I was propane spitting, and we both slain, bitching on them more change missions. That's when them folks came tripping. I got locked up and now we both stay distant. Yeah, the love's still there, but it's those things missing, like how we used to hit the block and go half on the whole thing, nigga. And before we got home, we sold both things, nigga. Now 100 for me, 100 for you. We stack half of that for rap. We got music to do. Seal the boss man envelope and turn off the lights. I fall asleep and dream big tonight, homie, cause I dream big. That's the reason I was locked in a cage, staring out the window with my cell all day. Cause I dream big. That's the reason Martin Luther was killed. That's why Malcolm X got hit with the